We are finally there. Roll coverage has gotten to the playoffs, so we are making sure to review all of the teams' press conferences that are involved in the playoffs. This one is going to be on head coach Sean McDermott. Let's go.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
So yeah, just in case you guys haven't checked us out before, my name is Nick. This is Roll Coverage, where we do breakdowns, reactions, and a ton more based on what these NFL teams are showing us. This one's going to be Mr. Sean McDermott. They're getting ready for the playoffs. Going to be a real interesting one. It's supposed to be a little on the cold side, of course, but he's going to tell us exactly why they need to be physical. Let's go.
All right, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. McDermott.
We'll go ahead and get started. I'll give you the updates on the injury front so far. So the following players will not practice today: Gabe Davis, Rasul Douglas, Taylor Rapp, Tyrell Dodson, and then limited in the concussion protocol is Ty Johnson. Deion Dawkins has hand laceration coming off the game, so he'll be limited as well. And then veteran rest will be Vaughn and Leonard Floyd. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll go from there.
First of all, again, if you haven't checked out our breakdowns, just kind of letting it go with the flow. I want to hear what he has to say, how he's saying, and his demeanor. Is he fidgety, stuff like that? We're just looking for little stuff. Obviously, that's a solid amount of injuries, and I mean solid in a bad way. That is a bunch of injuries in positions where you really need to kind of get after people. I do believe that that the Bills will be playing in the title game this year. I'm sorry. Jesus, I'm blanking. So yeah, I think that's going to be them. I think they're obviously going to have the rematch with the Chiefs, assuming this Dolphins game, which is apparently supposed to be negative in Kansas City, goes some other way. But right now, I'm predicting Bills-Chiefs. So obviously, you need some of those guys to be healthy for next week's game. This week upcoming still matters. Actually, it's infinitely more impactful and needed because you don't get to next week's game unless you get through this week's game. So, McDermott, please instill the confidence I'm looking for, because I'm not a Bills guy personally, not an Allen guy. I'm really trying, but I believe in McDermott. I like him a lot, so I really want to see how he's going to instill confidence in not even a Bills supporter. So,
what is Taylor Rapp dealing with?
Calf.
That's pretty different from last week, Sean. Your injury report's a bit different. It must be a concern going in.
His eyes got real big there. I know the NFL has been dealing with that. The Bengals had the thing with Burrow where apparently his hand was hurt and he wasn't on the list. And I think there was definitely one of their team, but I can't remember the player. So his eyes got real big there. I normally don't go back just because, you can really, if we really want to hyperanalyze it, then I'll get a true body language expert. But yeah, as soon as he goes to say that, look at his eyes. He leans back.
Different from last week, Sean. Your injury report's a bit different. It must be.
He's like, oh shit, how did you figure out?
A concern going into a playoff game now.
Yeah, would you like to be a little healthier than that? Yes, we've been dealing with it, quite honestly, most of the year, and we found a way, and we'll continue to do that.
An indication on, potential availability for some of the guys, Rasul, Gabe, Tyrell.
Is his eyes just totally throwing me off right now? He looks genuinely concerned, like he was crying in the tunnel before this interview. Is it just me? I didn't really see this before.
As far as the game goes, you mean? Yeah, no. Just talking with the trainers, we got to take it one day at a time here and see how we go.
You put them all in that day-to-day bucket?
Yeah.
Sean, with Joe Brady, since you have observed him in his new role and worked with him, what has stood out about his process?
Yeah, I would say, bless you, right from day one, and Joe in this role has been a great communicator, very collaborative, and his energy, allows for that. He's got good energy to get up out of his seat from his desk, go connect with said coach, and make sure they're aligned on the plan and the understanding of the plan, and or whatever it might be. So I think that's what stood out the most.
Can you talk about?
He seems like he's just answering these questions how they're supposed to be answered. Nice, easy, to the point, head coachy answer. Doesn't look like he's overthinking it too much. Does look like he's got something on his mind, but we'll probably hear about it later on. So
Rudolph and what he's meant to them. I mean, kind of
That's right. They're playing the Steelers, and T.J. Watt is reportedly going to be out, so that is good for the Bills.
Came out of nowhere, really, and they're 3-0. Why has that happened, do you think, as you watch the film?
They're playing good football. Again, I've said this before. You don't look at records. I mean, people could look at our record and say the same thing, right? It just
I did. I was one of those people. I will take it on the chin right here. Take it right there. I absolutely expected the Bills to miss the playoffs. Now, don't get me wrong. You guys kind of skated in just a little bit, but I'm happy. You made it in. Actually, I take that back. I think you were the 2 seed now that I think about it. But you did end up obviously having that slide for a while. And I'm not a big believer in Josh Allen. That's something that I've addressed previously. That being said, this is going to be the best time to beat the Steelers. Because if the Steelers end up getting what everybody assumes they're going to get, which is Russell Wilson, the sky's the limit for them, to be honest. I mean, we're really talking about giving this team a former Super Bowl winning quarterback possibly in the future. Like, they're a quarterback away. I'm sorry. I'm a Panthers fan. They told us we were a quarterback away. I told everybody we weren't. We got Bryce Young now, though. Imagine Bryce Young in a Steelers jersey, man. That's a 13-win team all day long. So this is your time to beat the Steelers before they get some actual help at quarterback. I still believe in Kenny the Ticket Pickett. It's just going to take some time, to be honest. He needs a little bit more time. He's a Pittsburgh guy. Let him develop behind older Russell Wilson for a year or two, and then let him take the reins, and he'll probably run rampant with it. So,
in terms of, hey, well, they snuck into the playoffs, whatever. This is a good football team, undefeated under Mason Rudolph, and well coached, playing good on both sides of the ball and special teams. I think when you watch the last 3 games in particular, they're playing high-quality football.
What do you think about the physical, what do you see on film about the physical nature of their play on both sides of the line, in the line of scrimmage?
you shout out, that's actually the name of this video that they put out. Sean McDermott says, we got to play physical. It's up there at the top. Yeah, they really need to control it. Obviously, the Steelers not having T.J. Watt, not having a true number 1 quarterback, the issues they've had with Pickens, akin to like what the Bills have had with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. So there's a lot of things kind of going against the Steelers. I do not expect the Steelers to win. If for some way they come up and upset y'all, I will feel so bad for the Bills. But I do expect McDermott to come in there, handle his business, and beat this club by probably 11 points. So
Very physical, very, very physical. As physical as we've seen all season.
Also, I saw the stat, since week 9, they've run the ball more than any team in the league. Sunday could be one of those days in Orchard Park, so, their running game, what do you have to do to kind of keep that under control?
Well, it starts with a mindset. It starts with a mindset, so you got to have that. That's really where it starts. So it's a physical game. They're a physical team. Look, if we want to have a chance, we got to play physical. There's no negotiating around that or finding a way around it. That's the style of football you have to play, in particular this time of year and against this football team.
Sean, I know playoffs usually.
like I said, the Steelers are something special. I'm a big fan. I'm hesitant. The Bills have the quarterback, but obviously they've had some issues with the run game, with the hero ball from Allen. So if Allen plays y'all out of this game and y'all lose, it's because of Josh Allen. I'm not gonna like hide the lead or whatever the hell people want to say. If you guys lose to a Najee Harris and oh my God, I just blanked on him. I have Jaylen Warren. If you guys lose to Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, and Mason Rudolph puts like 125 passing yards, that's going to be really bad news heading back to Buffalo. I think that obviously moving forward, you need to make a decision about Diggs. I've seen a few interesting ones. The one that if you're a Bills fan, tell me your opinion down in the comments. If you could broker a trade right now, okay, Stephon Diggs plus say next year's first round pick. Probably the next 2 first-round picks, or however you need to do it for the rules. 2 first-round picks, Stephon Diggs for Justin Jefferson. You get a 24, 25-year-old wide receiver at the peak of his power. You're going to be able to pay him a bunch of money, and then him and Josh Allen can go crazy. Would you take it? I personally would. I think that Minnesota would then have, obviously they would get Diggs back. They would have Diggs and Addison, new quarterback. I will expect them to go get a quarterback in the offseason, meaning the Vikings. So I think it could be a real interesting fit for both sides. So tell me your thoughts in the comments.
Wipe the slate clean, nothing you did before matters, but considering the mindset of your team for over a month has been playoff must-win scenarios, do you encourage them to almost carry that over as opposed to normal years entering the postseason?
I would say yes. Just overall, we have to continue to take the lessons we've learned from the last 6 weeks or so, and continue with those, continue to apply those lessons. And I think the biggest thing is just the love that the different displays or different forms of love that the guys have shown through their play in some capacities, and then just off the field in other capacities. And I think that's probably the biggest thing in terms of how they've done some of the things that they've done to this point.
Sean, I'm not sure if you remember back to the start of training camp, but you were joking about all the buzz about Dalton Kincaid and all.
Okay. I take that back. Of younger tight ends. The reason why I say that is especially when you pair young guys, mainly rookies, with a good dominant tight end, like take the Texans adding Dalton Schultz with Stroud. I think Ferguson is going to be great. I think they've got, Kincaid. They've definitely got some people over there. Tight ends is really what Josh Allen needs. I feel like they should commit more to the running game, especially if you decide to trade Diggs, because Gabe Davis is a wide receiver 3 at best. You don't really have a good, like somebody that I'd really be like, hey, somebody's going to steal him in the offseason outside of Diggs. So
Fantasy buzz and said, can we just wait to let him get his helmet on first and have a full practice? I'm checking back in. What are you making of now?
I would say, first of all, he's had a very, very good year as his first season in the NFL, and I'm not surprised. Some of that is so you guys don't, put too much expectations on a young player who hasn't even, at that point, practiced one snap in at least training camp in the NFL. So, I think he's had a phenomenal year. I think his approach has been tremendous with Coach Boris and having Dawson in that room and Q Morris. I mean, it's a really good room in terms of the mentality of the room and the day-to-day approach. And Dalton is wired the right way. He's stayed resilient. He's gotten his legs back underneath him after probably a little bit of a wall there that most players endure, and I think that says a lot about his mental toughness also.
What is it?
as well, especially with this offense, the way it's been running, the way you're going to have to win in the playoffs, you're really going to have to lean on that tight end quite a bit. So,
Just as a follow-up, just in a broader picture, given Gabe's uncertainty,
that I'm going to call out that I have seen so far. One, he's not as fidgety. I know I kind of, I fidget a little bit. But he doesn't really have that so far. Even in his previous breakdowns, he wasn't really super fidgety. Overall, I think he is really poised in this moment, especially going into the playoffs. Again, you guys are so dependent on Josh Allen to win that it's kind of irrelevant at times what McDermott does, because if Josh Allen goes out there and throws, 2 picks in the first half, you guys have a pretty solid chance of losing to this team. Now, obviously, if they come out there and shit the bed, then, hey, run all over him. But you won't know that until you get out on that field. So,
of his status, how important is it to be entering the playoffs having Dalton and Khalil and even, other guys emerge to take that load off should Gabe not be available?
Yeah, I mean, you saw that this past weekend, and we've got to move forward, and we're going to need it again. It takes everyone, and you never know when your number is going to be called, as it was for Balin last week, or Vandy, Trent, many others, right? T-Rap, Deontay. So you've got to be ready when your number is called, and that goes back to what happens today and the week as we build into to Sunday there.
When you mentioned Dalton's approach, what specifically are you seeing that has enabled him to have this kind of season?
Well, it's more of a consistent, mature beyond his years approach in terms of he's in the training room. He's staying ahead of things in terms of taking care of his body, because that's as hard as is just keeping your body as fresh as it can possibly be through 17 games. You know, he studies, he's in here early, he stays late. All those qualities, those intangibles, are what allow players to be really good early, or I can't tell you how many times players who eventually do that were like, man, I wish I would have done that earlier. And then there's players who never figure it out, and then they're in and out of the league rather quickly. So it's no different in real life. I mean, it's no different. You put the time in, at some point you'll see the results.
That wholeheartedly couldn't literally add anything else to that. One of the best examples that I go to is one of my favorite players of all time, controversial player nonetheless, Michael Vick. Michael Vick said that if he really focused on that playbook and did everything when he first got into the league, he would have been in a completely different place. I think that committing to the playbook, committing to learning the scheme, committing to all of that stuff is what makes a truly great person. I mean, we hear stories of like Tom Brady literally blowing off his family to watch a game, to do breakdowns and all that other stuff. So I think that that's something where it's a little bit of a slippery slope, but especially for a young player, for him to be already so deep into the X's and O's is a great barometer for his future success. And do we see him ascend to the levels of the Kelseys, the Kittles, the Mark Andrews, or do we see him, kind of return back to earth and become Kyle Pitts? I think it's going to be one of the top guys. So.
John, where do you think the offense is at right now in terms of its overall level of consistency heading into the postseason?
Always trying to find that perfect game, even though perfection does not exist. We've moved the ball. We moved the ball in particular this past game. And so it's, hey, what can we do to continue to improve? And that is true of the offense. It's true of all three phases, starting with me. So I think that.
Like that accountability. I really, really, really do from Sean. So
that's just that growth mindset of continual improvement is where our focus is probably out of more than anything right now, offensively and the other two phases as well.
With James Cook's emergence this season, having two wide receivers such as Khalil Shakir and Gabe Davis, their willingness to do the dirty work in run blocking, how have you seen that open the door for James to kind of spread his wings here?
Yeah, unselfishness is one of the qualities of great teams, and I'm not saying we're there yet. I'm just saying that if you want to be great, you've got to be willing to serve, and you've got to be willing to be that teammate that's willing to do the dirty work. That 1/11th mindset that we refer to quite often here. Without that, it's just a group of individuals, independent contractors. So I would say that you saw that quite frequently in the game the other night, and we need more of it. And that just goes back to, as I said earlier, I'm not sure who asked the question, maybe John did, but just the different displays of love for your teammates, for the team, it comes out in different forms, and I think that's one of the areas you're talking about right there.
Two things I want to touch on real quick. Okay? First one, if your team is dependent on Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir, obviously Shakir is a little bit more ascending. Gabe Davis is not him. I'm sorry. He's wide receiver 3. T. Higgins makes Gabe Davis look like me at wide receiver, okay? I also think it's interesting to call them essentially independent contractors. I mean, I understand, the idea, but overall, what a weird thing to say. Yeah, maybe it's me.
Those end of game situations being something you study a lot during the bye week and the success you've had since then with it, is there anything that stands out that's working in those, especially on the defensive side, with that being something you looked at specifically?
It's been different each time, I would say. I think more than anything, it's belief. It's a mindset, and I would say that we practiced it before. Now we're practicing it more full speed. So I think those are invaluable exposures for us every week.
Sean, the run defense has done a really good job creating negative plays, either tackles for loss or no gain. But on the flip side of that, it's also given up a fair share of explosive runs too. Do those correlate in any way in your mind, and how do you try to limit one with maximizing the other?
Yeah, no, fair question, Jay.
Thing I want to touch on is a lot of these coaches will be like, "Hey, man, it falls on me." Like the dude that I supported this year, my Carolina Panthers, Frank Reich. I supported him. He would continually go up to the podium and say, "It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault." But I felt like at a point, it got to be just, okay, well, it's all my fault. So that's why he became the scapegoat. I like that Sean McDermott is like, "Hey, man, I'm the head coach, so it all falls on me." But then immediately moves past it to really discuss what was asked. So I'm really respectful of that. And I really think that it shows a bit of maturity in McDermott that we don't see from some other coaches that just are trying to take it 100% onto them. Like, "Hey, man, it's me, it's me, it's me, not you." So
It's we've got to be more consistent, right? And that starts with just great run fundamentals, and not going down that rabbit hole right now. But there's a lot of things that go into it, right? In terms of fundamentals, playing with your hands, playing with good pad level, being in your gap, fitting where you're supposed to fit. And again, similar to the question earlier that Alex asked, it takes all 11, not just the front. It's an all 11 total defensive team effort in that regard. So I've got to start by putting them in the right positions to be there, to be that in terms of the run game and then the technique that's involved there.
Sean, 3 minutes to go in the game, 4th and 1. You're in your own territory. You go for it and you get it. When you started coaching for a long time, that would have been almost unheard of. Now it's become more commonplace. Did that take a while to get used to, or how do you think that evolved for you maybe and for the game itself, where you're going to put maybe more faith in the offense and try to keep the ball in those circumstances that it used to be almost a guaranteed punt?
Right. Yeah. I mean, from the time you're this big, growing up playing Pop Warner ball, AAU ball, whatever it's called, that's a punt situation every time, right? 10 out of 10. The game's evolved. Analytics has I think moved the game forward a little bit as well, and then
couldn't agree with that more. Analytics has changed the game for the positive. I understand the whole 4th down stuff. I understand the arguments, but man, we're seeing much better football now than we did 10 years ago. You can debate me, but the quarterbacks are just worse. The game isn't worse, so.
Every situation is a little bit different. We may get in that situation this week, and I don't do that. So that situation, I felt like it was the right situation for us to go for it and stay on the gas. And, we'll just see every situation, like I said, is different. Every game's different because the opponents are different.
How much of that is the game evolving versus how much is that you evolving?
I think it's probably both. I just
agree 100%.
think that the longer you're in a job, if you're doing it the right way, you continue to grow and learn, and you go through experiences. No different for your jobs. You're better. Hopefully, you're better in your second year as a reporter than your first year. And if you're doing your job right as a coach, no different. And so we were just discussing another situation that came up in the game, myself and another staff member a few minutes ago, and saying, "Hey, I feel good about that. I have peace about that. But let's go back and follow up on that. Do you still feel good about it, as I do?" And so it's continual growth, and because no two situations are exactly alike from year to year, but you can draw on certain experiences that you've had in the past and say, "Hey, this is how I would handle that." Or even, quite honestly, you watch games around the league and you see some of those situations, and there's just a lot that goes into it.
Sean, in terms of
Like that. Very, very genuine answer. It's kind of what we've been getting from Sean. I appreciate them just kind of letting him speak. Some of the other teams, if you've checked out my breakdowns in the past, which we will have socials linked, they'll cut them off. They'll, add another part to the question to change up their flow. Like, just let Sean talk. Let these head coaches talk. They have so much knowledge, and us as fans want to hear it. We want to get into their head. We want to understand what they're thinking. This is what we need.
the weather on Sunday, the weather will be the weather, but how do you prepare for that? And is it almost just a mindset?
A little bit of both, I would say, for sure, Jenna, with the mindset, yes, and then also the preparation that goes into it. We've been through a lot of games here where we've had to, no pun intended, weather the storm that way, right? So it affects a lot of things. It affects how you play the game, how you manage the game. So it's when we have that here, it's an added dimension to our preparation.
When it comes to adapting and with the new expanded practice squad rules that you've enjoyed over the past couple of years, the
Somebody back there is typing up a storm.
benefits of having a guy like Leonard Fournette and Josh Norman on the practice squad, which was not really available to you, back 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's been healthy and good for the league, and I would venture to guess that veteran players would agree with that. Like, some guys are able to get their legs underneath of them, and then when they're called to play, that they're ready to go. As opposed to a few years ago, before this new rule came into play, that you'd have maybe none or one or two. I can't remember the old rule. In fact, it's been a few years, but I like the way it is now, and I'm sure, again, some of these more veteran players appreciate the league doing it.
John, going back to your physicality, when you were talking about how the Steelers will be the most physical team you play, there's different games you can look back on this season. The Dallas game comes to mind. But how comfortable or confident do you feel that your team can play that type of game if they need to?
Very confident, yeah. But that's why we're going out to practice today as well, to continue to work on those key fundamentals that we're going to need to execute come Sunday.
That's the end of the breakdown. I got two things to add real quick. Okay. One, I agree that the additions to the practice squad and everything has been able to help out, especially with the long-term health of some of these more injury-plagued teams, 49ers, Ravens, even the Bills sometimes. My personal change has always been to add 3 more specifically 3 more offensive players, 3 more defensive players, and 1 special teams player to the roster, bringing the total roster to 60. Make them designated. They have to be designated offensive players, designated defense, and you're, of course, 1 designated special teams person. And I think the roster the roster should be adjusted to 60, essentially. So I like that. And then obviously him talking about going out there and practicing. That's what the Bills are getting ready for. They're getting ready for this game this weekend. But just in case you're just like me and you need more breakdowns, you need more football in your life, make sure to subscribe to us on the socials below. My name is Nick. This has been Roll Coverage. Hopefully you have a great rest of the day. And if you're a Bills fan, go Bills. Peace.